notes because some of the information that I would like to share most probably will be written on the whiteboard, and I can't record the whiteboard. What do you call that? I can't capture the whiteboard sketches and whatever notes that I put there. So yeah, I prefer online much more compared to face-to-face. But of course, in face-to-face, it is more convenient when you're trying to explore new software or something like that. Okay, but we are only at 16 people now, and I'm not sure when the others are, but I assume it's more on their internet connection. I hope that's the problem. But for those who still can't join, I want to make sure that you guys still be able to hear my lecture. So in any case, make sure to turn on your webcam to make for me to see that everyone is doing their work and not just listening in and doing something else. Please turn on your camera. I understand for girls you need to take some time, outright and whatnot, but I expected boys to almost immediately there. So far, Haziq is showing the ceiling. Yeah, okay, thank you, Haziq. But nobody else is showing the camera. I myself didn't turn on my webcam because I'm showing myself in the slide screen. So that what's the point of me showing my camera? And besides, my camera won't be able to work while my OBS is showing my slides. Okay, most of the boys have turned on the camera. Good. Okay, I guess we'll start. There are still a few of those of you who haven't turned on your cameras. But can I see all? Okay lah, most of the boys have turned on the camera. So we'll start. Okay, so for this session, basically you're trying to learn on Python. And what do you do with the Python? It's for me, when I did my PhD, I used MATLAB more back then because back then Python isn't as established as today. The support isn't as great, but it works. Supposedly, it is some sort of similar to MATLAB for those who have some exploration into MATLAB. But I guess most of you moving forward will at the level of degree and lower, degree diploma, chances are you'll be more keen on using Python because the support from Google is quite significant compared to MATLAB. Whereby for research work, I would still think that MATLAB is much better because faster processing. And Python, I guess the coding is much more simpler, it's much more intuitive, especially for those who have explored C programming that you have learned in SEM 1, SEM 2, SEM 1, I guess. So if you are able to pass that subject, chances are Python is much more simpler. Not to say simpler, because the wording is the syntax is much more simpler. I mean, if for C programming, if you want to print or an output, you have to put printf, whereby for Python, just print. And then if you want to define something, you have to put hashtag define something. Whereby for Python, just define. There's no weird symbol or anything like that. It's or maybe just DEF for Python. So it's much more simpler and hopefully would help you down the road lah, for your FYP and also for your degree later on. But to show to you how much Google has supported Python, which in our case, for those who have read the lab manual, it can be in Spider, and if I'm not mistaken, there's one more thing, one more platform that you can use to access Python with the library. I forgot because my experience more on Spider je lah. So it's a bit confusing sikit lah Spider ni for me back then when I tried to study it, but to show to you how much support that Python has received is what we're trying to show to you today lah, which is Google Collab. Okay, but before we go into that, first, the objective of this experiment is to basically solve a function, a mathematical function, objective function, and find the optimal parameters. So this is something got to do with if you're down the road wanting to learn on AI. So these are the things that you can basically do, which is to solve to find the optimal solution to a parameter, some sort similar like this. So if you're trying to solve an AI application, not to say AI itself, but the application of AI too, typically you're trying to find optimal solution. And then using a Python. And then to use curve fitting in SciPy to find a range of different curves to a set of observation. Can you guys see this? Or is it too small? But all of you can open your lab manual. So kalau tak nampak tu, buka your lab manual je lah. Okay, so what do you need? Personal computer, Python. Even then, Python ni pun sebenarnya you don't have to install anything. Just Google search, Google Collab, which I will explore later. Okay, so the theory is that the Python has been here since 1980s. I was born in 1983, so almost the same year as Python. So Python is as old as I am. In its current state, it is actually a good coding platform for prototyping. So because it's simple, and even though it's going to take some time for you to compile compared to other software, it's not quite as fast, especially when you're talking about rapid prototyping. But to come up with a basic concept, Python is almost as good as other software. And it offers many advantages over other languages such as C, C++, Java, and whatnot. Is that it is an open source software. That means you don't have to pay license, you don't have to buy anything. Everything is free. All the library, all the included support, everything is free because it is Linux based. Linux ni, if you know, for those who have quite an exposure to PC environment, dia ada tiga. Windows, which is the most famous, Mac, which is from Apple, also famous, and Linux. Linux ni not so widely spread being used in the main market, but for those who works with PCs, building programming for prototyping, whatever, Linux, people prefer Linux because first it is less bloatware. That means there's no HP or AutoCAD scan, McAfee scan, whatever installed in the Linux. So it's very light. It's fast, very, very fast because there's no wrapping to Windows environment. Windows ni every time you want to use it, and also Mac, not just Windows, they want to view it, to make the result as attractive as possible to the human eye candy. So typically that will be slow. But for Linux, everything's black or maybe grey or whatever theme that you want to use, but tak adalah animation tu, so cepat lah. Next thing. So if you want to do prototyping, most company lah that I go to, for those yang involved dengan prototyping, typically they will use Linux because it's fast. And then Python is available for all major operating software, Windows, Mac, Linux pun ada juga, Linux for Python. A program written on one system runs without modification on all systems. That means if you have 3 computers, for example, one using or 3 boot system, one Windows, one Mac, one Linux, you can go to any of the boot system. As long as you have installed Python in there, you can just run the same software that you coded in Windows. You can open and run it in Mac. You can open and run it in Linux. There's no proprietary because, again, it's open source. All the supports are there. So it works across all major operating systems. Okay, the other part here is more on the mathematical that you have learned back in high school. So curve fitting basically is just a statistical process to estimate relationship between the variables, which might be important to you, especially when you grow older. You want to, understand what your investment might be, to identify maybe rumah ni lagi bagus ke, for you to dump your money, maybe stock ke, maybe apa ke. So you maybe try to plot to become more scientific lah in your approach. So you plot your relationship between the return that you have gained over a period of time versus the other classes. So you can use curve fitting lah. It includes many techniques for modeling and analyzing several variables when the focus is on relationship between dependent variable. What is dependent variable? The one that is the output. The input. If let's say my phone suddenly turned on. Dependent variable is basically dependent. Dependent variable is the output. X, let's say lah, y equals to mx plus c. Yang straight line tu, linear relationship tu. So y tu adalah dependent variable, punya output. And one or more independent variable, which is the input. Kalau y mx plus c, that means m, x, and also c is the independent variable. So it does not depend on y for it to come up with a value. Supposedly lah. So curve fitting can be used for intercausal relationships to find out relationship between independent and dependent variables. Consider that we have collected examples of data. So data dia dah bagi dalam public domain, which dalam link ni ada. And x-axis is the independent variable to the input function, and y-axis is dependent variable or the output of the function. We don't know the terms of the form of the function yet, so that's why we approximate the function with the standard function form first. And curve fitting involves first defining the functional form ni roughly dulu, kita ballpark dulu dia punya functional form ni, and then baru kita go down to the parameters to the function that resulted in minimum error. So that's how even AI pun macam tu lah. Basically what you're trying to do. First korang kena ballpark dulu equation dia, and then reiterate run the simulation, run a few times until you got the best parameters based on the output that you have shown, and only then you select the best solution and then apply it on the data set yang memang you guys use the real data set for the same problem, and then the AI learn. So bila orang cakap AI tu bukan canggih apa pun, it's more on solving problem, finding X dengan Y tu to the possibly accurate representation of the process. So that's what AI is. Tak susah mana pun, it's just that collect data tu lah for me is very, very hard. Okay, in this lab module, Google Collab IDE is used as a platform to write the Python code. So you have to log in to your Google account. So if possible, you might need to access your UiTM Google, I think, because if I'm not mistaken, it will be saved to your Google Drive. So if you have your own Gmail to set up and access Google Collab ni, if let's say lah one day your size of, or maybe if I'm not mistaken, okay, this one will not be as huge as ni, tapi if you have email UiTM, your size will be much bigger for it to store to your Google Drive lah. So try to log in to your email UiTM to use Google Collab after this moving forward, sebab nanti tak serabut korang punya Google Drive. Again, cataloging, partitioning your info, your data is, I think, is the most big challenges that you guys will have moving forward in engineering. Sebab zaman saya, it's more on hardware. The best hardware wins. Zaman saya dulu RAM berapa, 34 MB satu komputer tu, 34 megabyte. Zaman sekarang how much kalau RAM 128 GB kalau paling besar. So bayangkan my zaman punya challenges. Zaman tu typing in computer is for the luxurious lah. For me back then, I still have to write my report using pen and pencil up until high school. So and then after that, zaman berubah. Now it's more back then after 2000, it's more on data, software. So photos macam Facebook, macam Google, they started to become besar lah back then after 2000. And I think my prediction for your generation pula, it's more on the marriage between hardware and software. If I'm not mistaken, nowadays Tesla pun dah moving toward batteries, and then they marry kan dengan dia punya kereta punya software. So the same thing I guess will be for you guys, software and hardware. So that's going to be a challenges. Okay, so enough merepek. So kita proceed with part A, which is linear curve fitting. But before that, they advise you to watch the YouTube channel. So catalog, for those who have watched the video, you should be able to know how to access Google Collab. But I'll just show it to you now. Where is it? This picture. Not this one. But why doesn't it show the Google Collab? Okay, hold on. Why am I? Oh, okay. Contohnya, just capture. Okay. So basically, you just type in Google Collab in your Google Chrome ke Firefox, but I prefer to use Google Chrome lah, sebab Google, email pun Google, cuma your email UiTM je lah yang saya I access my email UiTM email via Google email, so it's much more easier for me. But for you guys, I'm not sure for student. Okay, so just click on Google Collab. It will bring you to the page Google Collab. So I've already accessed it via my laptop. So supposedly when you're first coming in, you should be able to see another pop-up window that asks you to sign in or create an account. So make sure you sign in first. How you know that I've signed in? By having this picture here. So I've signed in using my UiTM email. Okay. So make sure you see the same page. And if I'm not mistaken, the first pop-up window will show you to add a new notebook. Notebook ni bukan PC, laptop semua. It's more on a project punya apa ni lah, a project punya screen, a project file basically. So you should create a new profile. So let's say I'll go back and then I re-sign in. So as you can see, I've already created part A notebook for my, but how can let's just start. I'll just restart. So this one maybe can I delete this? No, cannot. But okay lah, never mind. I'll just create new notebook. Give it a second. I think it depends on your internet also. So if your internet is really slow, then it takes some time, not so much on the computer. So for this part, again, since we are doing part A, I'll just put the part A lab 3. So the IPYNB tu biar, so the name tu maintain. So again, for YouTube ni, I prefer that you guys see it first, but I'm not sure. But the information isn't that critical. It's more on setting up the first page here to understand that. But I guess you guys can see it on your own later on. But for us to do this is just simple lah. So I guess again, when I keep on proposing, not proposing lah. I'm a proponent for bukan opponent proponent for cataloging. Basically susun maklumat tu cantik-cantik. So for me, I'll always put text over here as import heading, the same as the lab punya instruction tu. Okay, done. So the beauty of Google Collab ni, you boleh susun dia cantik-cantik. So this one you can put it bawah. Macam nak cantik ni. So ni letak atas. So ni text, nak cantikkan dia, nak nampak. Kalau macam C programming, if you recall, there's a section where you could comment to make the code much more easier untuk orang baca and you yourself baca. So the same thing goes here lah. But this time around, not only you can comment, but you can put a text on top of your code to be able for you to sort it out much more cleaner. So it's much more cleaner using this. Okay, so we start using this. We start typing this Python source code ni into the code area. Basically, what we are trying to import the data and just once you have typed it, just press enter and it will go to a new line. Senang je. So make sure everyone type. For those who can copy and paste, you can try, but for coding like this, I much prefer to type while biasakan diri type coding syntax tu. Typically when I started code, I will always type in rather than copy and paste. Macam yang previous code, I prefer not to ni sebab dia panjang sangat, sebab takut nanti ada typo. But for something like this, yang MATLAB ataupun mathematical punya programming, I like to type it in because there is a big chances that I'll be using this software in the future lah. So if you want to copy and paste, you can copy and paste. Okay, so and another beauty of using Google Collab as compared to installing Spider and whatnot, kalau if you want to run a simulation in Spider, there are several steps that you need to do, especially if you just want to run a portion of the code to make sure that there's no issue or error arise from your typo error. So that's the beauty of the Google Collab, where you can just run this section only, click this, and it's running. If there's an error, it will show to you the error somewhere here, if I'm not mistaken. So right now, there's no error. Everything, as you can see in my simulation, I have able to get green tick. So that means the code runs. There's no error here. And as you can see, it's even though it's just about importing a data. Okay, data read CSV ni nama data kita. Basically, this is an open source data. You be able to see this data in GitHub. Bila orang programmer ni dia suka main GitHub apa semua tu lah. Stack Overflow tu standard lah tu. So it takes some time. Basically depends on the internet lah. It's not so much on your computer. Computer run sampai sini, dia compilekan, dia send to the internet, and internet check whatever data Google lah. Basically Google server will check coding ni okay tak okay, and then returning back to you, and only then you'll be able to get the green tick. So it takes some time. So as you can see, macam tadi saya pakai laptop, lambat sikit lah. Okay, then we continue with the next section, but we plus text here so that we can follow the cantik-cantikkan. Macam saya cakap, challenges korang is compartmentalizing the big data yang korang akan ada. Maksudnya, kalau Facebook punya komen ke, Facebook punya topik politik ke apa ke, it's how you catalog your information that you'll be able to move forward as a better human being. Okay, so kita compartmentalize yang ini. Kenapa tak boleh? Kena double click. So, data. And then put the code. This one, since you don't want to salah type website ni, so tak nak Ctrl C Ctrl V lah kan salah type nanti kan satu kerja nak cari apa A B C yang salah ke, or 1 2 3. But the other part I'm not forcing you to do this. You can copy and paste, but macam ni nak tunjuk, when you type, there's a suggestion that the Python will show it to you, the typical coding that people will use, syntax that people will use once you type in ni lah. So AI dia detect, okay, you want to put read, so dia suggest read CSV lah, which is memang apa yang kita nak pakai to label. And then as you can see, it's much more convenient using Python, Google Collab, because once you tap bracket ni, dia terus tutupkan sebelah sana, tak kacau. Macam C programming kan, if you recall, you open bracket and then you tap panjang-panjang, tiba-tiba terlupa nak close bracket, dah satu kerja dah nak kena trace, nak troubleshoot. For Python, tak senang. So URL, comma, header equals to none. And enter, data equals data frame.values. And satu lagi, mudahnya Python ni tak perlu nak semicolon every single time you ni. Kadang-kadang semicolon, kadang-kadang tak semicolon. Python senang. Tak ada semicolon langsung. So that's the beauty of Python, and I hope you guys explore Python ni extensively nanti untuk your mini project ke ataupun your personal project ke. Because for you to become a data scientist or even AI punya engineer pun, I think moving forward, korang punya job scope is more on AI lah nanti as an engineer. So Python will play a big role lah. Python sebab dia boleh interface dengan internet kan, compared to MATLAB. Jangan malas Kenapa Singapore lagi maju daripada kita is because they don't take things lazy. Maksudnya dia memang actively seeking the cutting edge punya technology to keep themselves at the forefront. Kalau tak sampai bila-bila, sebab itulah dia orang boleh belagak dengan kita. Lambat. Jangan salahkan kerajaan, jangan salahkan orang lain, salahkan diri sendiri ya. Siapa suruh mengamalkan laser sphere tu dalam hidup sendiri. Zaman saya pun, saya tak nafikan lah, saya sendiri pun borang EPU mak saya yang isikan. Tapi bila dah terjatuh tu, dah tergadah tu, itulah sampai sekarang ni dapat PhD juga. Okay, so I guess that should be all for the second part, loading the data set. Okay, you can just run the section here to make sure there's no error. Okay, so there is an error, which is okay. Apparently they introduce enter kat sini, so should be like this. Okay, that's how the error should be lah. Okay, so this is the result as a result of you running this code. So you should put this data in your data sheet or lab sheet. So if you want to snap this, just open it in a new image and then save image as, or if you want to make, I think it's in your boleh save image as. So that you can put this, but I prefer to just use snip and then capture even the code and the result into the lab sheet. So nampak senang at this stage, anybody has any issues before I proceed? Do anybody has any issues that you might want me to clarify something? No? Everybody can are able to get the same result as I am?
Yes, sir.
All right. Okay, output, this is output A1. So make sure to include it in your lab sheet. It's stated there. Okay, and then we move on to the next one, which is, okay, how do I, okay, which is define linear curve fitting objective function. Okay.
Sir,
Yep.
in my Google Collab, the graph doesn't show up.
Doesn't show up. Can you share me your screen at the moment? Can you show it to me? What does it show at the moment?
Okay.
Because your first section is still running. I guess your internet is having some problem, or maybe slow. What are you using, your phone or your, what kind of internet are you using right now?
Data?
The data from your phone.
Yes.
Is there any possibility that it is under low data? Apa yang tertulis selalunya kalau kita connect pakai personal hotspot tu?
Oh, I think my data is just fine. Maybe because I just accidentally click here before I click run here, and I click both of these two.
Yeah, that's another possibility lah. But what you can do, you can close this first and masuk balik.
Okay.
But takut I believe it's some sort of like macam mismatch data transmission ke apa ke. So tutup dulu, run balik. Make sure save save dulu. Apa nama ni? Notebook ni. I
Okay.
think it's auto save. So just to be sure, copy text tu, letak dalam notepad so that when you masuk balik, you can just copy and paste.
Okay.
Alright. Okay. Tunggu dulu
Should I just close this or?
Yeah, close this.
Okay.
And then run one by one. Run the first one first, dah habis baru you run the other one. You have to tutup ni. You have tutup ni. Tutup. Oh, dah save belum?
Not sure. I think it is.
You can't run both Google Collab. Ni akan jadi isu ni. Save dulu. Kalau boleh save. Give it a second. Okay, then tutup. Baru buka baru. That one. It seems like your internet is quite fast. It's just that maybe, Okay, try it, run. This one memang tak boleh nak buat apa It depends on your internet connection. It's not so much on your hardware or your software. Ini memang internet dependent.
So I need to wait the first coding to run and then
And only then will you do the second one.
okay.
But in the meantime, while it's still sending the data to you, what you can do is just continue with the typing. Sebab kalau ada error, dia akan tunjuk and you can just repair it as you go along. But yelah, saya nak proceed nanti kan nak tunggu semua nanti lambat pula. So benda ni senang je. So if after you've submitted the coding and it's somehow still allocating like this, just leave it. Nanti after ni baru you do the next one and do the next one and the next one. But in the meantime, type lah. Continue typing the code dalam apa ni? The code dalam lab manual tu. Lama allocating.
Right, sir. Thank you.
Okay. It's quite a long time juga tu. I'm not sure it's your internet ke your computer because I have to admit lah, my laptop is quite powerful juga for yang gamers tahulah kan. Tapi it's GTX 1070, not that high age sangat tapi still quite fast lah, and my home internet pun tak adalah laju sangat, 30 Mbps je, but still I guess much better than your phone lah, considering at the moment I think siapa yang pakai data phone tu currently congested. For those yang belajar communication, I'm not sure whether you have learned it or not, engineering telecommunication, data korang tu kongsi dengan a few other students. So I think kalau pakai Maxis, Maxis, Celcom memang jam lah siapa-siapa yang duduk college tu sebab semua beratur pakai data. It's not so much because dia laju tak laju, it's because your turn to take the data and berapa ramai orang pakai data, and especially kat campus korang tu most probably ada few hundreds of person there termasuk fakulti lain. So that might contribute to your data punya slow, fast lah. loading ni cepat once dia got data, tapi you still have to wait for your turn to get the data, because you have to remember data tu dia kongsi satu antena tu a few subscribers tu which is you guys lah, and lagi ramai lagi lambat lah dia dapat macam beratur lagi panjang. Okay, so just wait, but you can still continue with our lecture, because I recorded pun and everything is ada dalam coding tu pun. Anybody else has any issues? If not, then we'll continue with the coding. So the next one, define linear curve fitting. So siapa yang lambat? Nurin, nanti Rah tadi. Siapa yang lambat tu just wait, but just continue coding dengan saya ni lah. Shouldn't be any issue. Okay, def objective C. Okay, this time around, they want you to put the bukan semicolon, apa ni? Double dot. And once you press enter, you can give the equation m multiply with x plus c. So basically this is y equal mx plus c punya coding. But this is how you write the code. Instead of macam C programming, you put y equals to mx plus c. For Python, ini dia lain sikit. I think it's because they want to use curve fitting punya ni lah. Curve fitting punya algorithm. So put the output as objective. The define objective tu actually boleh je define y. Sorry. And the dependent variable x, m, and c. And then return m multiplied with x plus c. So if you put this into equation, is actually just y equals to mx plus c. Then you can run this to make sure it is correct. Okay, so no error. We can continue. Okay, ni kalau nak komen, kita tak nak komen. We can just padam this. And then plus text. Apa dia? Oh, ni lah text. Sorry. Okay, so the next step is generate the fitting to data x and y. Code. And then start to code m c formal parameters covariance equals optimize dot curve. Okay, dia dah bagi suggestion tu boleh pakai. Saya tetapkan salah pula. And then objective is the output, x data. Okay, objective tu actually can be y, but since you define objective as the output of this equation, return mx plus c ni, so you have to use objective lah. And then y data, kenapa tadi objektif ni y data pula? Sebab yang ini lebih kepada nak plot. Y, x dengan y just more on the plotting, not so much on not so much on the equation itself. So you have to remember, and this part is equation, and this part is plotting the data. Ada error tak? Okay, there is an error, which is it because I didn't press enter? I think so. Let's see if my theory is correct. So before optimize, I put here. Try to rerun. Yep, there's an error. And see error. Invalid syntax. Let's see. Why is this invalid syntax? A typo? Maybe if I just oh, okay. This is what they mentioned that you have to explore. Okay, that is. Okay, I haven't tried this section yet. Invalid syntax ni can be tons of things, but itulah dia tak mention. Okay, just so you know, the creator of this lab actually sengaja letak some syntax error in the code so that you explore what is the solution. But I guess I haven't tried it myself, so that is why I'm also having this problem. But give me a second while I try and test what's the error here. Parameter programmings. Yes, itu tak ada issue.
Sir,
Yep,
you need to write it in one line.
I did in one line.
Ah,
But why tadi saya buat dia tak boleh?
no, saya dapat online.
Dapat. Did I wrongly put something? Okay. Oh, bukan one line salah. Ni underscore. Typo. Dah. See, saya ni sebenarnya level noob jugalah coding. Sorry, saya tertinggal. Okay. Okay, so everyone else, but the what I've mentioned just now, where the creator of the lab put in some error, there are a few, but apparently this one is not it. Ini saya sendiri yang salah. Okay, so everyone else tak ada issue macam saya. Maksudnya kalau issue saya tu typo lah tu. Okay, so the next section, which is to plot the data. Okay, and then the code is quite long, but I'll rather type it in because again saya masih lagi nak belajar Python ni. I did one or two program back few years back, so to brush up and to make sure that I am familiar with Python, so I would rather type it in. And decide apa guna keyboard mahal-mahal tak type kan. Just follow your lab manual tak perlu nak tengok saya besar sangat sebab takut tak clear dekat Gmail tu. But try as best as you could to put it next to each other so that senang for you to refer to one document to the other. Okay. Plot scatter, plot x theta, objective. given the length of the code, there is a risk that I might have keyed in wrongly. So it's attractive to see lah. But anyway, thank you tadi siapa yang tegur tadi tu, yang saya salah tadi tu. It's good feedback. It's said that itulah punya underscore bukannya ni. So if I plotted this, then you'll be able to see maknanya saya kod tu dia salah lah, betul lah saya kod. So this is the approximation of the linear function. So this is the data that you got, and then you ask Python to plot it, and this is the relationship that Python has calculated for you, and resulting in this equation, this equation, this line. So, okay, I'll give you a few seconds untuk siapkan siapa yang sama macam saya juga typekan dia punya output tu. And mostly semua nampak macam dah siap je. Okay, nanti saya elaborate lah apa benda yang dia cakap ni. Okay, then kita continue dengan now we have plotted it. Now we want to know the exact equation tu, apa nombor-nombor dia, apa itu x, apa itu y, apa itu apa itu x, what is x, what is m, what is c. So in order for you to do that, you have to find the optimal parameters is by typing print. Remember I said for C programming you have to use printf and then double semicolon, what you call that, double quote and whatnot. So almost similar, except that it is much simpler where you just print in single colon or single open bracket number. So but everything else almost similar to C programming. So that's why you moving forward lah, if let's say you want to build your own Google ke, you want to become a technopreneur with a startup yang based on online based, carilah macam mana pun korang to other platform, you'll never run away from C or C++. Sebab nampak ni masih lagi C ni, percent 0.5 F ni masih lagi C program ni. So jangan sombong lah cakap tak nak belajar C sebab kuno lah apalah. Trust me, you will eat those words soon enough. Ilmu ni janganlah sombong. Okay, so they want you to print the optimal parameters. So just run the code. You'll be able to get the value, which is y equals to m is 0.48488 plus x plus 8.3067, which is the C. So you can put this into your lab sheet. So what does this thing do actually? Okay, the first part is basically you getting your data from the internet, because in order for you to plot something, you have to have the data lah, the numbers lah. So this is what you basically you grab this from the internet, and then the exact coding ni tengok sendiri lah, korang form your own understanding, conclusion. So you form your own understanding, what does each of these line do. Actually, I think it's obvious lah for those who are familiar with C. Import, that means you grab the data to the project file. From is the location, import whatever data yang dia ada lah, file name data, those are the same things, panda, CSV. So basically this is you grabbing the data from the internet, and then you load the data set to the program file, and then you susun dia cantik, you arrange it such that you give the name and also the structure lah, maksudnya first column apa, y ke, x ke, m ke, apa ke. So you basically this is susun data lah, and then plot it. So this is where you plot the data, to see how the data looks like. And then you come up with the approximation equation, which is it can be objective, it can be y, it's up to you, and dependent variable, and then the relationship, approximation relationship, you put it here and return it to the function. And then you define the Python code for optimization punya apa ni, coding, well, algorithm. So basically the code will look at this, the approximation punya function, and then the data, and then they try to fit it to the best that they could lah. Because right now, if you see this, if you yourself is trying to plot this data, chances are you can start it from here up until it depends. But Python using their AI built-in AI yang dorang ada, they found out that the best output is actually from this line here. So what you plot and what Python plot might be different, but Python has more data sciences, data scientists behind it. So they will be much more accurate. And it'll take some time, especially to find this optimal solution, and you calculate every single solution, yx, then it will take some time. But for computers, that's the beauty of AI. This is in milliseconds. Trying to find the best line is in milliseconds for Python. Even though kita transmit data over the internet, still in milliseconds dia punya apa ni. So as you can see, sebenarnya AI will not ganti kita. So far yang orang duk cerita yang apa AI ni memusnahkan apalah, it will be one day. I hope it's not in my lifetime. Depend on our hardware punya karakteristik juga, apa computers juga. Meaning, yes, the calculation will be done in milliseconds, but we as a human being nak elak batu tepi jalan pun is also almost instantaneously. And kita, while kita process all the other information kita ada, sambil-sambil fikir nak masak apa, sambil-sambil tu kita bawa kereta, make sure it is in a straight time, in the correct speed. Sambil-sambil tu kita fikir masa depan ke, anak ke, apa, our girlfriend ke, apa ke. Tapi at the same time, ada accident berlaku in front of our car, we'll still be able to maneuver. Whereby AI, it can only do one task at one time. Itu keburukan dia, tapi dia punya processing ni cepat daripada kita. But in real time, in real application, AI is still lagging behind us. So I guess in the future, with the existence of quantum computing ni basically fiber optics for computers. Instead of kita sekarang ni, for those yang tahu, yang interested, kan kalau kita build a PC, kalau motherboard tu kan kita nampak yang apa nama, PCB belakang tu kan masih lagi menggunakan copper wire. So that means data transmission masih lagi dependent on physics of apa, kalau normally electrical conductivity, electrical conductivity between copper wire. So lambat lah. Even though kita rasa dah laju, tekan je power button, pump terus keluar Windows, tapi quantum computing lagi laju. Imagine copper wire internet korang pakai yang Streamix, then you compare it with Unify yang pakai fiber optics. The same thing goes to your hardware after this with quantum, not quantum computing, satu lagi, quantum computing is the instead of using memory, dia punya memory tu instead of like this straight line, now it's bersepah-sepah. So banyak lah. So itu laju random access memory dia. Tapi when you're talking about structure, photonics computing. Photonics computing is the one yang we can compare copper Streamix and Unify punya fiber optics. So photonics tu macam tu. So as you can see from this application, AI kita sekarang ni is still based on copper wire punya connectivity. So moving forward with the advance of photonics computing, then AI can be a challenge to us in the future. Who knows? But for now, AI dia figure out after kita dah transmit data and all that, this is the best plot. And then after at the end of it, you ask Python to print out the actual value based on the plot that you have done in part A ni lah. Okay, so that's how the coding goes. Any questions before we proceed to part B? No questions? Okay, if there are no questions, then we continue with part B, which you have to create a new notebook lah, to make sure that you didn't overwrite part A lab 3 ni. So, kita create a new notebook, name it, we should name it part B lab 3. Okay, so the same data set, the same procedures, but now the definition is different, such that it now uses apa? X kuasa 2 bukan linear function, quadratic function, sorry. Pagi-pagi tak kickstart saya punya otak, kickstart 10 AM after good rest lah. So semalam duk buat KPI, standard lah tu. Anyhow, okay, so the same as part A, so we'll just copy the same data set and also the same text. Okay, kita buat lah sama. Oh, sorry. See, text dulu. Pick up, and then the code, which is sebab dah type tadi, so tak payah type 2 kali. Auto buat kerja 2 kali. So, and then cast text, load data set. Okay, the reason why I'm still putting text, it's up to you. If you don't want to put it, it's up to you. There's no harms done. It's just that again, like I said, I prefer to be more, saya pun rajin kemas rumah lah basically. Orang macam saya ni, rajin kemas rumah, rajin kemas bilik, semua saya kemas lah. So that shows who I am. Sebab saya suka susun cantik-cantik. Do the same thing, kita run section by section, because if not, it's going to be kecil lah. So kita load, lepas load kita terus plot kan. Okay, so the same data to make sure there's no error. Okay, this one saya buat dulu, text dulu. Second, this one yang kita kena define a new one as according to the manual lab. So as you can see, objective, now we have X, A, B, and C. We have one more variable, dependent variable, which is A, B, and C. So the equation will also be different. Again, I like to type it in because I'm trying to be fluent with the code. Again, like any language, if you don't, bahasa English saya ni lah, tak practice sangat, end up rusty gila and terpaksa mix and match with BM. But anyhow, that's supposedly to be the coding yang dia minta lah, which is the equation yang dia minta, quadratic equation. X kuasa 2 plus BX plus C. So, plus AX plus BX plus C yang tu lah. So, A macam ni dia buat BX kuasa 2 plus AX plus C. Tapi still the same quadratic function. Okay, we can run it to make sure there's no error. Okay, so far there's none. Plus text to curve to find the best fitting for this coding and this equation and the data. So this one you have to alter it to reflect the equation. Will it be the same? MC current covariance. We'll try first. Can it run? No. All right. So I put there A, B, C because now the dependent variable is A, B, and C. So previously it was M and C. Now dependent variable is now A, B, and C. So saya menyuap awak ni sebenarnya ni. So I don't like that, but have to lah. Especially for those yang baru ni. But for those yang ni, awak kena explain kenapa saya letak ABC, kenapa awak letak ABC here, kenapa are you adjust it to be ABC. Okay, then there's no error there. Now we plot the data. Okay, the plus code. Balik. Okay, for plotting the data, again, you still need to edit some of the code here to reflect your data because you have now 3 variables instead of 2 like previously. Again, try to run to see if there's any error. So in my case, there are now no error and I'm able to get the data as shown here. So now it's a quadratic function. So there's a curve over there, as you can see, and ultimately Python AI has found out, not Python AI lah, I think this is Google Collab, Google AI lah. They found out that the best curve fit will be at that figure there. So this is AI finding. Of course, if you don't agree, you can find it yourself and then try to compare with the result of the AI lah. Again, the AI being used here to optimize this. I'm not sure which kind of AI. Is it neural network or recurrent neural network, artificial neural network, or whatever? But from their AI, apparently it produces that this output is the best optimization. Again, this area of research is also a big area. People are still finding out the best solution. So even though it's just a simple equation, but the AI approach that is able to predict the outcome of this is still a hot topic. Still, even though dah berapa tahun dah. To show to you that AI research is still baru lagi lah, mentah lagi. Kalau tu, research memang macam tu. Even your phone tu sebenarnya, it takes, the first time kita belajar pasal wireless transmission was back in World War II. Walkie-talkie apa semua tu. And then only after 2000 that, 1990, baru kita ada first handheld phone. Phone not walkie-talkie, phone. Walkie-talkie memang dah lama ada. So it shows, research tu daripada, I think, wireless transmission was done since 1940s, 1930s lagi. But only 2000 or 1990s baru we realise in the real world punya application of phone. So research AI ni, I would think another 10-20 years baru orang boleh pakai everyday lah. But right now pun kita pun dah pakai everyday lah, cuma something yang kita tak tahulah, macam for example like the one that I mentioned earlier, waktu awal time tadi, baru fikir dah nampak iklan. Tu application of AI lah tu. Terus saya pergi tekan enter pula. Run the next code, press run. Okay, there seems to be an error because I put the M and C. We should put E, B, and C now because we have 3 inputs, dependent variable. Oh, no, oh. Uh, so there should be 3 x by x. Okay. Okay, so the equation is this one. So I don't want you to just paste this. I want you to elaborate. Why did I put this code here? Why did I alter the things that I've just altered just now? Okay, so you need to define why did I do. Okay, saya dah suap awak. Now saya nak awak form your own words to give me the reason why I did what I did. Bukan sebab saya suap awak. Saya nak make sure awak jalankan sikit pemahaman tu. So that PNP tu bukan saya swap awak terima, saya swap awak terima. No. I want you to process the data, process the knowledge to make sure that you yourself becoming an engineer bukan kerja dia ikut arahan dia. Try to be a human being juga. Maksudnya bukan robot. Sebab kalau awak robot, dalam 10 tahun awak bekerja, insyaAllah awak akan kena buang kerja. Trust me. I've been there, I've done that. Okay, so then after you completed part B, make sure all the data here has been stored and saved so that boleh masuk dalam black sheet, and then proceed to the discussion lah. Discuss on linear and polynomial curve fitting error for data X and Y. Apa ini awak kena cari sendiri ini saya tak boleh nak suap. Discuss on how SciPy is used to fit the different curve and set of your observation. So this one you might need to have to do some research on yourself. Basically just Google. Tapi fitting error ni maksudnya discuss on it. Apa beza between part A straight line ni and part B yang ada curve ni. So apa fitting error dia tu? Apa beza dia? But more on accuracy kot I think, fitting error ni. And then how SciPy is used basically to explain this area lah, optimized curve ni. So you have to do some digging on what optimized curve ni means. Maksudnya AI apa dia pakai ke? Kalau ada AI lah, kot saya tipu awak ke. It turns out it's just a simple mathematical punya equation. Tapi just so you know, AI is actually mathematical equation juga. It's simple je sebenarnya neural network tu. Tapi itulah, you have to Google stack lah. Apa Stack Overflow lah, apa benda optimized curve fit. Do some research. So in the conclusion, in this lab manual, you discovered how to use curve fitting in Python, and it involves finding the optimal parameters to a function that you define. So again, same data, same plot, but part A and part B, satu curve, satu straight line. Sebab apa? This section here. You yang define first mx plus c, second one, you yang define quadratic function. So they will try to fit the function. Unlike supervised learning, curve fitting requires that you define the function first that maps example of input and output, and then curve fitting in SciPy is used to fit a range of different curves to set of observation. So apabila mengepek ni, unlike supervised learning, maksudnya kalau awak ada coding sendiri yang memang awak kena fit dia every single time. Okay, mula plot ni, and then record, mula plot ni, and then record, mula plot ni, and then record. So it will take some time for you to complete the best optimal solution to find this data or this data. But if you run optimized curve, run sekali, siap. And depending on if let's say you use locally punya Python, Spider lah specifically, chances are this will be in mere seconds. Macam tadi saya kena tunggu dia hantar data ke internet, and then they process and then get back to me, then only then will I be able to plot, to optimize the curve ni. Tapi kalau you use locally punya computer and then ada pula SSD and you have that the faster RAM, the faster processor, especially yang apa nama, Threadripper punya function tu, chances are tekan je start ni terus siap. I think lah. Kalau pakai local spider. So it depends on your internet lah kalau pakai Google Collab ni. So but compared supervised learning and this is called unsupervised learning. That means you just type in curve fit, you bagi the approximation equation dia, and then you run. That is considered as unsupervised. That means you tak perlu declare, okay, after this masukkan nombor A ni apa, try A111, A, B and C 111, see what happens. Try 0.0005 plus 000. Kan leceh tu, nampak tak? Okay. They can go to millions of sebab A, B and C ni value dia can go to millions to find out the optimal ni kalau kita pakai supervised learning to find the optimal curve. Whereby optimized curve fit ni yang millions punya equation tu dia buat sendiri. Dah sedar dalam masa 2 or 5 seconds yang they needed to get back to us, dah dapat dah plot. So that's the part of apa ni lah yang awak boleh include dalam awak punya report. Okay, so as you recall, this is on short report lab sheet. So if you recall, we still have 3 more labs, and if you recall, we have one more long report that you need to submit other than your mini project. So I guess for your long report, I want you to do it on the next chapter, which is CST, because CST is quite long. Dia punya ni CST for beginners ni is quite long, and given that you guys are EE112, I think this is the perfect condition lah, sebab ni lebih kepada EE111 for communication. So that means you guys have to explore a totally new software, which I myself haven't had the chance to explore it yet. Hopefully by this weekend. But supposedly, bagi saya lah, honestly speaking, buat antena sebenarnya mudah je. It's up to personal ni lah. Tapi dia punya susah tu is not so much on ni, but setting the parameters. Cuma now, I want you to do the long report on this one. Again, long report, long report has its own format, long format. So make sure you're aware of that. And then try to baca lab ni before masuk lab. Untuk yang macam hari ni senang, so saya tak push sangat. Tapi yang untuk this one, try to baca. And I know some of you have already installed and proceed forward, which is a good thing for you guys lah. Alhamdulillah. And it shows that korang boleh jadi the next generation. It gives me a good hope lah for the next generation punya leaders ke apa, hopefully. But it shows yang korang prepare. Even though level korang now is just diploma, but trust me, future, nobody knows what the future holds. Saya dulu diploma loser gila, and surprisingly degree jadi alpha male lah pula. Not in terms of being handsome ke apa tak study. Saya paling tinggi, I'm not to say that I'm very good lah, tapi 3.86 CGPA. But of course, lepas tu dah jatuh lah. Okay, so but basically try to see, baca pre-lab ni dulu. Kalau boleh try sendiri, and then so that bila ada issue ke apa ke, kita can go through during the lab session. Okay, any questions so far in regards to today's punya lab?
No, sir.
Okay, tak ada. So if there are none, and as you can see, kita ended before 9:30. So sejam lebih je kita needed to fulfill our lab 3 ni. So that is why I don't want to do face-to-face, because then kita hanya buang masa tunggu projector, and then lepak-lepak dalam lab tunggu buat ni, sebab tak ada troubleshooting pun, mudah je, cuma internet je lah. And lagi mudah lah sekarang. So now it's 9:30, almost 9:30, so I guess we can end our session today lah, if there are no questions. Okay, so thank you for your time, and again, if you have